Hello everyone, I am Abid Hassan, Senior Assistant Editor with ETHR World, and I welcome all of you to this exclusive webcast that we're doing on the very important topic, reinventing learning strategy for 2021. Learning is a continuous process, and if you're not learning, you're not growing. Companies have gone through a tremendous change and reinvented their learning strategy in the digital age. To build momentum and grow through 2021, the organization need to keep up the pace with new learning demands. Workplaces across different verticals transformed themselves to virtual learning, which has immensely helped them. Corporate learning has been remodeled, and the leaders who have prioritized learning and development continuously will be successful in reaching their business goals. It has become a more thought driven process, and it can't be a tick in the box any longer. To highlight the new approaches of learning and how to reinvent this year, we have with us Mr. Kamal Datta, Managing Director, Skillsoft India, to discuss, debate, and deliberate on the importance of reinventing learning. Welcome, Mr. Datta. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, Abid. Pleasure to be here.
Before I ask Mr. Datta to share his thoughts, I would like to state a few words about him. Mr. Datta comes from an IT industry background and worked with companies such as Wipro, IBM, and HP in multiple geographies such as Hong Kong, Korea, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia. He joined Skillsoft in 2018 and responsible for accelerating revenue growth and shaping strategic relationships in the country. He's an avid learner and also wrote a book on the IT landscape. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Datta.
Thank you so much, Abid. Looking
Over
forward
to
to
you
it.
now.
Sure, thanks. I'll just share my screen. So, thanks for this opportunity. I had some insights over the last 1 year when I have been talking to various L&D folks across the country, across different market segments. I realized, first of all, that today is a grim milestone in terms of our fight for COVID and in this pandemic journey. We do see the health crisis, and I really appreciate your time for attending this, first of all. While I will not speak much about it, and it's all over the news, the fact is that due to the pandemic and the health crisis, we see a whole lot of economic uncertainty, both at a personal as well as professional careers of people. And and there are a lot of obviously changes that is happening, supply chain disruptions, etc. The question is, how do we prepare ourselves for such changes? How do we ensure that we have the resilience at the individual and at an organization level to deal with such situations? And those were predominantly the questions I have been asking and looking at the trends overall. So, what as a trend we observed was that yes, people were consuming a lot more learning during this time than ever before, but they were doing so for content which was hyper personalized, which were immersive. So people were valuing great content, well written, well researched, instructional design, good video quality, etc. People were also, organizations across, were looking at how do they curate this learning to ensure that whatever learning happens directly helps an employee to grow or achieve a particular role in their organization. So a role-based curation was continuously being done in the industry. And at the same time, I think because we were all personally impacted, there was uncertainty. People were on their own having the level of curiosity to see how else can they enhance their skill sets, their competencies, and prepare themselves for the future and the new normal, basically. They were also looking at micro learning because people were at home working on webinars or listening in like this, and in between, they would like to catch up on some skills. So, micro learning became a more important theme. And so did consumerization of education and learning in a large sense, if you see India holistically. The key focus also shifted in the corporate to from just learning to accessing, practicing, and applying the knowledge that was gained. And of course, for many organizations, and I will talk a little bit about this, was that there was an intense focus on seeing that they can realize the value for the investments that they were making, for the spend that they were doing. So, needless to say, we saw huge amount of growth, 500%, 600% in agile, full stack developer, DevOps. There was a 300% increase in ethics and diversity and bias, etc. Effective communication was required and saw huge increase, almost 400%. I can go on and on with trends, but let me take a step back and talk about what we saw really in India, basically. In India, when we were doing this with multiple organizations as a trend report, what we saw was that the key priorities for L&D folks was really around building skills and capabilities required for the future. That was the overwhelming priority from the L&D people. And yes, their priorities were also about developing leadership, ensuring that their L&D strategies are aligned to the business, that they want to improve the employees' productivity, efficiency, and in general, their performance to have a higher level of contribution. But at the same time, there were some big challenges as well. While the full report is available, I am just presenting you a snippet of it. So if you look at the challenges, the biggest challenge that came in was demonstrating ROI. The second was, how do they get employees engaged in a learning environment? How do they bring the culture of learning in the organization? They were also looking for more data and insights about their users, their preferences, their learning habits, and so on and so forth, and constantly trying to align it to the company's strategy, being a partner to the business. And many of them complained about smaller budgets and teams. But that was the overwhelming. So, what I have done for the rest of the presentation is I have taken certain elements of this. So, for example, the biggest challenge was demonstrating ROI and lack of employee interest. Those are two specific topics we'll talk about a little more. When it came to priorities, when you look at building skills for the future or defining the ROI, those are again things that we will focus on during this presentation. So if you look at the transformational goal while speaking to these customers was many of them believe that skill requirements for a hybrid future should be based on journeys, roadmaps. There was a mix between a lot of people doing a lot of formal learning, but they also realized that much of the informal learning was happening based on curiosity, and they would like to continue that and perhaps also see find ways to measure that. Many organization L&D folks told me they don't necessarily measure the informal learning that happens, whether at a peer-to-peer level or any other media that they are consuming. Identifying the potential and aligning it to the business unit goals continues to be a very big theme. And it's about partnering, L&D partnering with the business units, business group heads, senior leadership to find out what are their key priorities, goals, and vision. They also realized that there was a bit of fatigue building in of online stuff, and they wanted to see how they can make it more interesting and insightful for people, making it more meaningful for them to attend this kind of events. And, and I think overwhelming sense was building resilience as a theme. Resilience by way of skills, resilience by way of getting competitive advantage, but it was about resilience. And I think many of the organization took this time to really rethink about their approach to L&D, both from a user experience and engagement perspective, as well as upgrading the technologies that they were using underneath, whether it was the learning management system or the learning experience platform. So that being said, let me take a pause here and ask you a question. What would you consider as the key goal of e-learning in your organization, which has the highest impact in 2021? So let me take a pause here and see if you can, why don't you, depending on the number or tick mark, tell me which one do you think has the highest impact in 2021? So I'll just take a moment here and allow you to vote. All right, I thought this would be enough time for you to make up your mind on this. Um, Sometimes things can be a bit difficult to choose. You may like to choose multiple of these. I do realize that. I should have had the option to say select all if you wanted, but I just wanted to get a sense, and maybe I will use it in my next seminar or webinar about this. But I think all of them, based on my discussions with different L&D people, some of them are looking for better efficiencies or talent retention or capabilities for the future or resilience or skills across all levels of organization, building leadership skills, etc. But priorities could be different. But the impact wise, all of them are equally impactful. But on a personal note, I would like to say one of the projects that I did when I was working for another company at a global scale, we found that if we could train and make our first line managers, the people managers, and achieve some level of better efficiency or better productivity or better decision making, more data based decision making, and so on and so forth. So, growth mindset, etc. That had the highest impact in the growth and revenue of the organization as well as on the bottom line of the organization. So, I'll leave it with that and move to the next slide. So Skillsoft, as we are training almost 400 million plus users every day, more than 1 billion learning assets, train practically 65% of the Fortune 500 companies across 160 countries in 29 different languages. Now, the reason I gave you that was before I go into the premises, I just wanted, for those who didn't know, just to have a glimpse of the kind of things that we do around technology and development, IT, ITS, leadership, workplace, digital transformation, business skills, and productivity skills. I will not get too much into it, but essentially, we give solutions where you can watch, listen, read, and practice in the LXP called Percipio. And I have seen we are working with large customers across this country. This is a quote from the Chief People Officer from Cipla, how they have seen on an average number of people increasing and consuming more. And this from a pharma industry during this time where you can presume that they are extremely busy. So I wanted to take a step back and given what we just talked about and the overarching themes, look at it from three different lenses, really. Look at it from a leader's lens, look at it from the HR and L&D team's lens, and look at it from the employee lens. So when you look at it, and again, before I get into the leadership, thought we will put another question for you. And thanks for your response. Really appreciate it. What do you think has the highest impact on organizational growth? Because that's what your leaders are looking for. Is it driving digital transformation, building resilience by leadership and soft skills, focus on tech skills and IT skills for getting competitive advantage, or customer and business centricity and curated learning paths, or generally improving productivity, efficiency, and collaboration across the organization? Which do you think would your leader believe has the highest impact on the growth of your organization today? So I'll again take a moment's pause and allow you to just mull over this and give a poll, or maybe just answer that. Uh, I hope you can select and maybe we can share the results towards the end a bit if that's okay. Just to elaborate, when I say tech skills, it's essentially about AI, ML, IoT, Internet of Things, cloud, etc. Those kind of tech skills. and soft skills are in general more behavioral. All right, so great results. Seems like productivity efficiency continues to be the highest, leading to better collaboration, but not less is digital transformation, um, organization resilience, and customer centricity learning path being equally important for driving growth. Um, couldn't agree more. Thank you again for the response. 100 plus responses are good enough to form a statistics. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. So moving on, the, let's talk about the leaders a little bit. Um, they are today going through an enormously difficult time. They are reimagining their new normal, pivoting the business accordingly, viewing the partnership, resource communication, optimizing the P&Ls, looking at to accelerate digitization and automation, given the kind of workforce disruptions they have seen. They want to accelerate flexibility, inclusion, accountability, building team resilience, and also looking at how they can accelerate agility and innovation. Now, those are all top themes, and there are many more, but just to give you a sense of it. And again, when you think about some of the competencies, when I say leadership competencies, I don't really mean they are for leaders. These are leadership competencies for every employee looking or working in this. So, developing a customer centric culture, it's true for every employee. If you're looking at how to manage your priorities, better time management, building diversity, developing people, growth mindset, all of those, or managing conflict, those are applicable to each and every role out there. Now, one of the things that I'm a great fan of is not only looking at the leaders and what their priorities are and what are the skill sets they're looking at, but also to say whether they can ensure that while we have become a digital economy, while we have become a idea economy, and we are heading towards more digitization, the fact that how do I, as a leader, measure in a digital world? As most businesses pivot towards digital, as a manager, as a leader, as a people's leader, do I have the right level of competency to lead into a idea economy or a digital economy? So this calibration is an self-paced assessment. You can answer 60 questions, which will let you know where you are on the maturity spectrum and which are the critical skills that we believe that you need in order to, and these are designed by an author called Jerry Kane from the Technology Fallacy. He's written a book called Technology Fallacy. And based on that, he has designed this particular assessment piece. So let's change a gear and talk about the HR and L&D teams. If you look at it, HR has been on the front line as far as this crisis is concerned. Now, within that, what we have seen is that if you have heard the earning calls, various companies, the CEOs are spending more time in those earning calls globally as well as in India, talking about how they are enhancing talent or how they're investing for talent, how they're helping grow digital technologies or automation, etc. Because shareholders believe that those are the investments that gives the highest yield in terms of perception for a stock price, basically. So from an HR and L&D perspective, look, given the kind of year that we have been, I think the biggest theme that was their priority was first to ensure employee protection and wellness as they return to workplace or continue to work from home. Next was employee collaboration, engagement, and learning platforms, and how to enhance that. They also were looking at career transition, adjacency matrix frameworks, curated skill alignment to lines of businesses, looking at things like sustainability, inclusion, and diversity. Now, if you look at 3 and 4, what this means is while there were companies which were cutting headcounts, they were also looking at how can I allow some career transitions to happen within the organization and ensure that we can develop a matrix framework, a 9 by 9 grid, etc., in which we can identify the adjacent talent skill sets, and onboard the employee on those skill sets so that he can move laterally within different frameworks. So that's what this means basically. And again, as I have said this many times before, nothing is more important than alignment to the line of businesses. So again, let me take a pause here and ask you another question. What do you consider in L&D to be the biggest challenge today that you want to solve, right? I showed you the challenges before L&D previously, but here I just want to take another go at it, given that we have more than 150 people on the call. What would you like to do? Better learning experience platform, technologies for better learning, invest in aligning goals to the business imperatives, demonstrate value, ROI to your CFO, get more mind share from your leadership, and help build a learning culture, or solving your cost and budget issues to do all of those things. So, which are your biggest challenge today in L&D? It will be interesting to see if it is more aligned to what I showed initially about things have changed in the last 3 to 4 months. I'm also presuming that the current mood also plays a role in this, but hoping that we can elevate ourselves from that and be willing to um, answer this more looking at what has been your challenge. And if you're not from L&D, what do you believe the L&D's biggest challenge would be in your organization? All right, thanks again. Just read out again. Thanks for your responses. This validates what I showed you previously, demonstrating value and ROI to your senior leadership and CFO CEOs is considered still the bulkiest or the biggest challenge. But the other challenge to take note of is getting learning engagement, getting learners engaged and aligning the goals to the business. Somewhat less is leadership mindshare, and budget seems to be only 30% concerned. Not bad at all. Thank you so much for this once again. As I said, these are important data points that we will perhaps use um, in some another forum. Now, one of the objectives, as I told you, of L&D folks was around wellness, and that cannot be ignored as a business unit must continue. And when you look at the new normal that we're heading towards, what we did was we asked and we thought about what would be the top 5 things to consider if you are in HR and L&D and thinking about employee wellness and effectiveness at this time is around ensuring the COVID risk, obviously, workplace safety at home, mental health, big theme, resilience. Look, harassment and employee misconduct and inclusion were always important. What has become important also is security risk, which has gone up by almost 300% in terms of frauds, in terms of threats, cyber threats, in terms of data breach, in terms of fraud, both calls, etc. And when people are working from home, they are no longer under that shield. So how do you protect your employees working at home from cyber risk? Business continuity was always there, it's been there since last year, and leadership in the new normal. How do you lead self, team, and businesses into this new normal? So those were the overwhelming HR themes around learning. Um, I think I spoke about this a bit about that adjacency skill, but essentially, organizations are beginning to realize that they are looking at T-shaped employee. So what we do is we have curated paths of learning based on certain data that our 3,000, 4,000 odd customers give us around the globe. But more importantly, looking at some independent, websites like Burning Glass, for example, and collecting data. So, for example, if we have a course on customer service manager journey, that has been curated as a channel and a journey based on these burning glass technologies. And finally, let's look at the learner, or the employee himself. Um, open the newspaper, or if you're not reading newspaper in these times, when you're glancing through your mobile or reading any of the social media or news in the web, the fact is you are bombarded with buzzwords like become a data science engineer, or big data and AI and deep learning and machine language and robotics and robotic automation processes and blockchain and whole lot of technology being there. The question they ask is, am I supposed to learn this? Is this important for me? How important can I make a shift in my career based on this, etc.? So I think while they are being bombarded by many of the different things, what they need to understand is really get some validation as to what is important in their role and their future roles, so that they remain relevant to the organization and to the industry at large. Now, from a perspective of focus, right? Driving learner engagement. We spoke about this and said this is a big theme. So the first top five things that you can do to increase really that engagement with an e-learning platform is first of all to really provide an immersive platform, rich media, augmented reality, virtual reality is coming in. So those will be the technology shifts in your learning experience platforms and content, which will provide for enhanced engagement. The platform itself changes that. Now, when you have to think over this, think of the time how you consumed your TV, from the Doordarshan times to cable TV to the way Netflix engages you. So you will see the trend of that engagement happening there. And that's what I'm talking about. The second piece, and don't miss this out, is again the content being designed and enhanced for retention through this instructional design and through micro learning. Now that's very important because it's very hard to keep concentration if just a person like this, like me, is just speaking in. Rather, what you want is scenario based, storyboard based, animation and rich media based learning. And not only that, constantly checking for assessment, certification, practice, etc. The third is ensure that curiosity-based learning is supported in the environment that you are looking for. Things like voice-enabled search or mentorship, etc. Those themes are equally important. Then you think about AI-based personalized recommendation. Think again about recommendation engine when you watch a content that you get similar content, whether it's Google or Netflix, etc. And audiobooks that encourages again your engagement. And finally, it's about communities. We still like to love to form small cohorts, have a hybrid learning model, which is supported, of course, on our platform, where you can have build learning communities along with a hybrid model, which means part of it is virtual like this, and part of it is based on e-learning content and social learning. So when you think about engagement, now that you heard of all this, again, taking a moment to pause, maybe this can be a good recap as well. Which one do you think has the highest impact on learners' engagement? Is it the platform? Is it hyper-personalized content? Is it wider coverage of topics for informal learning? Or is it the latest innovations like AI, ML, cloud, big data, the topic itself, which drives engagement? Or is it a top-down behavior and culture? And this time I have all the above to transform in future. So which one do you think, or maybe you think all of the above is the right answer? Again, taking a moment pause to allow you to vote your results. This shouldn't be very difficult. This is an easy one. So I'm just even going to give another pause and a moment for everyone to vote. And when I mean wider coverage topic, I mean both soft, hard skills, behavioral skills, managerial leadership skills, etc. All right, make your choice. Great. So, wow, 43% did choose all the above to drive engagement. And I completely agree. And I was leaning towards that to some extent, of course. But yes, immersive and hyper-personalized micro-learning content seems to be the next big theme to drive engagement. Experience platform being equally important. Not so important, but still relevant, is wider coverage of topics, top-down behavior and organizational culture, actually more important than wider coverage. And finally, the technology. Wow, given all the news we hear, technology scoring the latest or the least in this is not completely surprising from an engagement point of view. The reason I had that out there was because sometimes when I see a lot of people talking about learn AI, learn big data, etc., it tends to drive engagement. But great results. Thank you again for your votes. They really help us. And continuously, we have got more than 100 votes. So that's fantastic. So, which means you are listening as well. So, moving on, you talked about content being the second, other than all the above. So, if you look at content, there are two things really that we focus on. So, we focus entire amount of research work that you do with MIT in trying to understand what is the science behind this learning. So whether we try to measure the participations, looking at their brain activity, the cognitive behavior, and therefore try to design more modern, engaging instructional design, which allows for higher retention, higher engagement, and building competency. Not really like a lecture like this. What you will also see is high definition immersive videos. So if you look on the right side of it, you will almost feel a Netflix like content. They are best in class, pragmatic, captivating, storyboard, contextualized, and modular in order to facilitate micro learning. Not all vendors are doing this to this extent. It's difficult to do it. It takes studios and production quality and production designing and instructional designing. So it is a complex process. So, but that is what it takes to drive engagement. On the other hand, we do realize that just by content we won't get the engagement. So we do focus, and this is Skillsoft really. We focus on driving technology. So some of the technology that today we are using is a Google-like advanced search algorithm. We are using natural language processing, AI-based recommendation engines, machine learning, blockchain. Many of the AI curations that we see are done based on AI. We do dynamic mapping of roles to skill based on AI. We are using constantly big data and machine learning. We are providing cloud-based assessment services. This is just to give you an example of the variety of technologies that we as a company are using to enhance our product for our customers. Because we clearly understand that the market is rapidly evolving and we need to be leading, if not in the bleeding edge of technology, in order to continue our leadership in the marketplace today. So if you look at again, this is an example of a journey. Many of you have read that full stack developer, the hottest job, 500% plus increase in demand for job roles of full stack development forecasted till about 2024. But this is just an example, and this is based on US Bureau of Labor Statistics. So these kind of learning experiences and journeys are extremely useful. Most of our customers have done two things. They have taken the journeys that we have curated, but more importantly, many have come back to us and say, we want to develop our own custom journey for our certain roles and functions in our organization, and we can help you do that as well. And boot camps can't really undermine the importance of this from a design of learning in your organization. You have heard of hackathons and boot camps. They're extremely powerful learning environments and engagement that you can get from your learners. We started doing this about a year back, and the response has been superlative. So whether it's on technology themes, we also do leadership boot camps where participants are from all over the world. Very, very insightful. You get a global perspective. So now you've heard about the need for democratizing learning. I've not spoken about all the themes. I wanted to remain focused on some of the observation and challenges. But how do we measure this ROI thing? So the last thing is we need to crack this. Now, in order to crack this, I went around and asked, what are the important KPIs that matter to you, right? How are you measuring the success of your programs? And I got variety of different answers. I looked back and said, look, we have been 2 decades in this business. We should know some of these answers ourselves. So what I did was I collated all of those based on what people told us and based on what we had our experience and best practices in. And together we said, you know what, for the best in class, the gold standards for measuring success as a metric, the KPI that you need are these 6 KPIs. And you can see value realization up there with the cost benefit analysis. Future skill workforce readiness, remember, important theme. You also voted it important. Value to the organization. Did it really help improve productivity and efficiency and yield better contribution from employees? Was it relevant to the business alignment to the goals and skills that were required? And finally, how was the engagement with the learners? Did they come back and back again and again to learn? Those are the 6 metrics which we believe demonstrates and measures and provides a real-time insight that you can take from our environment today and give it and preview it. So these are the real-time, and real-time is important. A spreadsheet won't cut. These are real-time insights that are delivered right out of the platform, right out of the box. Now, if you look at the value realization framework, how do we deliver value? Is it just by delivering product and solution? Of course not. So what we do is we look at a role within our organization called customer success manager, who is really an advisory role, which works with the customers in order to provide the right adoption techniques, the best practices, the peer benchmarks, the industry trends. And these best practices are then delivered to that organization from an adoption point of view. But that may not be enough, and we recognize that. So we have a professional services organization. Imagine things like designing your own custom journeys. What they do is they help you curate a custom journey based on your roles for your functions within your organization. And that's professional services. Combined, they offer the ability to validate, enable, leverage, track, and establish the value realization that you need from the tools. So in many sense, I think our approach has been a bit unique, integrating with LMS, producing those dashboards, looking at it from services and adoption, providing that engagement to drive that adoption, focusing on research and the platform along with content. And those results have been superlative. Because when you bring all of those capabilities to our customers, what we see is 400% increase in learning velocity, 3,500 employees acquiring new skills in 3 months' time. And these are examples of an Indian customer. Finally, I just want to end by saying these are indeed very grim times. It's very distracting, the news that you hear. Somebody's family, everybody's family, somebody is impacted somewhere. I think the overwhelming feeling is this is time to be more digital, but also more human. And I'm sure you all will agree. So with that, thank you very much. And I just want to pass it back for any Q&A questions. Hopefully we have about 18, 19 minutes for that.
Yes, we have a lot of questions, Kamal, for you. I hope you have time. So let me start with you. So we have a lot of anonymous attendees as well. So I'll just start this question. The first question is how to decide on evaluation parameters to measure the effectiveness of learning intervention and how to measure the change in behavior of our participants that have actually learned rather than just consumed the learning content.
Yeah. So there are two questions: how to measure and evaluate a learning solution, and then look at the participants who did learn, what were the outcome. So as I said, the first part is really based on those KPIs, the success metrics. So we can understand in the e-learning world, it means repeat number of users, course completion, etc., etc. Their ability to do that assessment, their ability to practice and the test scores and so on and so forth. All of that gives you the level of engagement, level of understanding, the competencies and retention, etc. The second step is really looking at it, how much they applied those skills in their roles and their jobs. That no platform can tell you. What we do is we have designed survey templates which we can provide to you, where people who have completed those course can take on those surveys and answer how much of that skill they have applied in that. So it's a mix between what is delivered from out of box and what needs to be custom and executed in your organization.
So another question is from Prasna Gupta. What methods would you recommend to track and evaluate the social learning happening across the organization?
Great question. People are still working at that problem. As you know, there are many crawler type technologies which are coming in, which can tell me at an individual level how much time you're spending on social platforms, tools, etc. How much time you spend in, for example, in Facebook or WhatsApp and Twitter and or, LinkedIn, etc. So not all the time spent is on learning, right? But you do learn something, even browsing things, etc. Very difficult to capture. It's honestly something that I think we are just beginning to realize the importance of social learning. How to measure it, capture it, and produce reports is probably the second, third, fourth steps. Someday, with the technology, we'll get there. Do we have similar technologies today? Yes, but they are being used for different reasons and for different purposes. But yes, great question, and I think it's something that industry should start focusing on and thinking about.
Okay. So another question is, what key L&D metrics can we use while calculating the L&D ROI?
I think the L&D metrics to use for calculating ROI, I have been very, very prescriptive about this. I think I'll go back to those 6 KPIs that I showed you. Those are if you can get those 6 done, trust me, no leadership, no financial measure, they cannot ask you for the 7th one. I can assure you that. Those 6 are not good enough. They are the gold standard of measuring impact of learning in your organization.
So we have one question from Ravi Shankar Sinha. Ravi is asking, how can the organizations create the desire, need for learning, like self-interest and personal motivation?
Yeah.
How
Let
can
me ask a question and try to answer that. How do you develop resilience in your organization? Or how do you develop curiosity in the organization? I think all the answers are the same. There are role models and there are leaders in your organization. And honestly, many of the people, employees, they look up to these individuals, high visible individuals, managers, and the leadership team. And depending on what kind of resilience they show, they emulate that. The rest of the organization emulates that. So if they see the leader of the organization learning and then talking about it, or reading a book and articulating that in the team meetings, if they see high performance individuals sharing that this is one of the best things that they do as a regular habit, if organizations run programs which are not really about course completion and assignment, but habit formation, those are some of the ways where you can change the culture of the organization. It's not a short term, it will take time, but if you are at it for longer duration and you do this 3, 4 focus things, I think it will get the results that you need.
We have another question from Kiran Yadav. Kiran is asking, with the attention span decreasing with increased consumption of on-screen learning, how do one devise a L&D program or a module which is immersive and engaging?
Yes. Very good question, first of all. So I read somewhere that the attention span of human being is now less than a goldfish that you see in those aquariums.
Less than zero point 0.6 seconds.
Yeah. Somewhere I read this as a snippet. I don't know whether it's true or not, but it sounds ridiculous. I think many of the parents, if you have a young child, will tell you that I think my child has attention deficit syndromes. That's how small their attention is. Yes, so I completely agree. It's almost like a pandemic, the attention span, and it's decreasing constantly. What can you do to make learning effective, right? As I said, if I am a person who likes to just be in front of a camera and a mic and start speaking and expect people will continuously attentively listen, that world has changed. That world doesn't exist anymore. Now, those are good if you're wanting to cook something. I listen to this guy, see what is he doing, and I can learn to cook maybe biryani better. Right? But I can't use that for building skill sets as a cook. My cooking competencies will not depend on that one task that I did. Right? So when you have to build competencies, when you have to have retention which can last and competency that can last, and written application of that knowledge in a framework, all of that will not happen if with a person just instructing it like this. Right? I think the point that I was making is two, three things. One is there are three aspects of getting the right answer for this. One is it has to be based on a storyboard and a scenario based learning. So when we see people enact something, we understand it better. It's just human. Even animation can help, actually, because with pictures and stories, our retention and engagement is better. Okay? That's one part of it. Even when you are telling that story in an animated or in a Netflix kind of a studio and storyboard and actors playing that role, you still need to break it in modules of 5, 10, 15 minutes max. Because even if it is a movie or this thing, I will lose my attention because this is learning. This is not a thriller movie in 15 minutes time to 10 minutes time. So you break it down so that he can consume it depending on whenever he gets time, in between a meal, in between work, learning in the flow of work, all of that comes in. Lastly, I think it's instructional design. Just making the whole movie and cutting it into 5 minutes doesn't cut. So you need to follow an instructional design which is aligned to your question bank, so that after every module you can ask a question and see how much of that knowledge he has retained. So driving this alignment between that engagement, the question bank, the instructional design, storyboarding, production, and quality is a Herculean task. So sometimes I've heard people say, we can just create content. No, you can't. It's a very difficult process.
So we have a very long and unusual question here.
Yeah.
So the question is from Nishant Agarwal. Nishant is
Yeah.
asking, I work for a manufacturing company where the culture pre-COVID was largely experiential learning and it worked really well in an offline setup. But post-COVID, though we had reasonable success with Zoom-based ILT, but largely we have not hit the sweet spot of learner engagement and impact through desired behavioral change. What could be a possible solution? Skillsoft?
Yeah, I mean, I'm presuming you're talking about the white collar workforce and not the blue collar. Blue collar is a tougher challenge, basically. See, experiential learning, and I think it may not replace that experiential learning. Okay, on-the-job learning and experiential learning will remain. What you can do is to augment it with Western class. So yes, maybe look at Skillsoft maybe as one of the solutions, or basically think about it like this: get the right platform, like a Netflix kind of a platform, put great content from your curated along with your SMEs. So you will have some SMEs in your organization. They have the domain skills, they know the industry, they have been at the job more than 2 decades. So their experience if you can augment with global world-class training programs and combine the two into a hybrid model, to me, I believe that is the best in class that you can get.
You mentioned about white collar employees. I have one question to ask.
Yeah.
So, organizations are now crafting remote work friendly digital learning strategies to drive employee engagement, right? So, this, however, only helps engaging the white collar employees. How can we engage blue collar employees in this new world of work?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. See, I think I'll give an example. We were working with one organization, retail company, and they were thinking about these blue collar workers, and we were looking at maybe we need to put something in Hindi or local language, etc. What we discovered, for example, was that aspirationally, they want to aspire to learn in English. They don't want to learn it in their native language. Okay? But trying to understand what they learn and where they can learn and how they can learn, those challenges haven't gone away. Can we build some chaos in the manufacturing setup where you play certain learning programs so that when they're sitting for lunch and eating, and can they view that particular module? Could be an idea. I know, for example, Ola does this, I believe. Before the taxi cab driver can switch on the engine and start doing it before the meter starts, he has to take a quick 5-minute learning module. And those can be to improve customer experience, that can be a variety of different things. So I think organizations need to really look at what are the possibilities, be a bit innovative and creative, and they can work with a learning partner and curate and really frame these kind of challenges to them. And I think there will be answers that can be found. I'm not saying I have the answer, but I'm just giving you some examples what I have heard, which has worked well. Maybe there are more stories out there which you can capture.
So, one question is how to incorporate adaptability and customer satisfaction in the training, and how to change the mindset of trainees.
Uh, okay, so if I got the question right, are you seeking a more adaptable e-learning program, or are you talking in context of a classroom training? Because I didn't particularly get that. But I presume it is for e-learning, right? So what we do is we are not a static company. In fact, no e-learning company will be a static company. So they are constantly looking at the way people are learning, what they are learning, how they are learning, and they are reinforcing and adding new features and functionality and new content every day, basically. To just give you an idea, 2 or 3 years back, we would put a new NPI or a new product in production every 6 months or a year, basically. It was an annual event to get new feature and functionality. Today, we are doing that weekly. Why? Because now we have adopted Agile and DevOps and all of those methodologies. And now we can deliver weekly, monthly, enhancements and features and functionality which is being added. So, so we are, yes, very adaptable. We also look, there are customers who have told us, you know what, based on our priorities, these are the things we need, which you don't have today. Those we put it under an ER process, which is an enhancement request process that goes through a level of prioritization. And we can tell that this is how we have prioritized it. And this is when, say, in next quarter, it will be available. So, yeah, I think most vendors, including us, are being extremely adaptable and flexible to that sense. At the minimum, I know our organization is one of their key tasks is to look at these ERs and put that as a part of their roadmap as we go along. I don't know whether that answered the question or not, but at the minimum, we are doing this on a regular basis.
I think this will be the last question, and I think this is the pain point for every employer. The question is how to motivate employees to invest more time in learning, Is a recognition system always necessary to motivate employees for driving learners' engagement? Please answer
Ah,
that.
very philosophical question in the end as well. Look, let me start from the end. Okay. Everybody loves recognition. The fact that you can get a badge of certificate when you complete a Skillsoft course, and the fact that you can retain that badge in your social media, okay, LinkedIn, etc., outside your job or current organization as well, and share it in social media, get that peer validation recognition. I think that's a very important part of. See, when you see a peer of yours in the same organization completing a course and putting up that badge of completion, believe me, there is some level of competition that you are creating. Certainly, your peers are thinking, he has done it, our manager has taken note of it, and I have not done it. That's competition, right? So maybe it doesn't help motivate, but it does create competition and fear out of which he may do it. That could be one way of looking at it. So yes, badges, certificates, sharing in social media, all of that definitely helps. And we have seen tons of people who are using Skillsoft putting up these badges in social media and getting overwhelmingly good feedback. Now, how do you build a system outside of this which can draw the user and engage him? I think there's no rocket science in this. People have a natural need to learn, they are naturally curious. The only thing that you need to do is to ensure that your experience of learning is hassle free. It's available on a mobile, it's available on his time, in his learning flow of work, in his schedule of the day, in his iPad or mobile or desktop, in whichever way he wants to learn. Because let's accept it, we may all try to generalize stuff out here, but every individual is different. Everyone loves and tries to learn differently. What you do is you need to cater to everybody's individual style and preference of learning. And if you do that in a holistic manner, in an enterprise platform, and give him that experience, I'm sure that you will see high adoption and high engagement with your learners. So that's about it.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you, Mr. Datta, for joining this webinar and sharing your thoughts. And I want to thank all the participants for taking out time and asking questions and engaging with us. Keep reading ETHR World, subscribe to the newsletter. And for those who are asking about this video, this will be live on the website. Please go back and watch this video. We can also have the presentation there. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Abid. Pleasure to be with you always.
Thank you. Thanks so much.